Wagnir were getting brutally fucked in the ass by a relentless alien enemy, and if something drastic didn't happen soon, annihilation awaited their entire pathetic race. Antares looked out over the bloody, charred battlefield, littered with the broken bodies of countless dead Wagnir soldiers. They fought with all the advanced weapons and technology their homeworld could muster. Molecular disintegrators, quantum singularity grenades, AI-driven attack drones, but still the enemy crushed them like insects. Every day brought more devastating losses. The stench of scorched Wagnir flesh polluted the air. In the war room, Antares slammed his fist on the table. This is fucking hopeless. We're getting slaughtered out there. Our tactics are useless against them. The other commanders glared at him. What do you propose then, Antares? Surrender? No. We call in the humans. Antares pulled up classified files he'd been secretly studying. Look at their history. Whenever the odds are overwhelmingly against them, whenever logic says they should just roll over and die, that's when humans get really dangerous. They're crazy, unpredictable, ruthless. They never give up. It's like trying to fight a force of nature. Humans? Those filthy primitives? The commanders scoffed dismissively. They can barely travel between stars. Exactly. Which means no one will see this coming. Trust me, humans are our only hope. Antares showed footage of past human wars. Stalingrad, Iwo Jima, Fallujah. Soldiers fighting to the last breath amidst hellish destruction. We need that human aggression and tenacity on our side, or we're doomed. Facing swift extinction, the Wagnir leadership reluctantly authorized Antares' insane plan. He contacted a notorious human mercenary named Stephen Adams. Although skeptical at first, the vast fortune offered and chance for glory convinced Adams to assemble an elite team of battle-hardened human warriors. But as the humans arrived on the Wagnir homeworld, the clash of civilizations nearly derailed the whole shaky alliance. Wagnir viewed the crude, boisterous humans with seething distrust and disdain. And the humans didn't much like the haughty, rigid Wagnir either. While rushing to train with advanced alien weapons, egos and cultural differences created a constant powder keg of looming conflict. Meanwhile, the enemy sensed weakness and closed in for the kill. Wagnir strongholds fell rapidly as panicked leaders fled the onslaught. The future of the Wagnir race now hinged completely on this untested partnership with a species they considered barely sapient. Adams and his human mercenaries were out of time. They needed to launch a desperate counterstrike immediately, or the Wagnir would be wiped from the cosmos forever. This would be the ultimate trial by fire for an alliance that never should have been. But with the chips down and their backs against the wall, now was the moment for the humans to show the ruthless determination that defined their species. As the human mercenaries arrived on the Wagnir homeworld, they dove headfirst into mastering the alien weaponry. Adams and his team spent grueling hours in the training simulators, learning to wield molecular disintegrators and quantum singularity grenades with deadly precision. Sweat poured down their faces as they pushed themselves to the brink of exhaustion, determined to prove their worth. The Wagnir soldiers watched the humans with a mix of fascination and skepticism. They whispered amongst themselves, doubting that these primitive apes could ever match their own combat prowess. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to shift. Adams led by example, always the first to arrive at training and the last to leave. He sparred with Wagnir warriors twice his size, never backing down even when the odds were stacked against him. Slowly but surely, he earned the grudging respect of the alien soldiers. "You fight with the ferocity of a Wagnir," Antares remarked after a particularly brutal training session. "Perhaps there is more to your species than meets the eye." Adams grinned, wiping the blood from his split lip. "We humans have a saying back on Earth. Never underestimate the underdogs." As the joint human-Wagnir force prepared for their daring offensive, Adams pored over the schematics of the enemy stronghold. He traced his finger along the holographic projections, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I have an idea," he said, turning to face Antares and the other Wagnir commanders. "We split our forces. The humans will lead a ground assault, infiltrating the base and causing as much chaos as possible. While they're distracted, your ships can rain hell from above. Antares studied the plan, his eyes widening with each passing moment. It's bold, he admitted, but it just might work. Your tactical mind is impressive, Adams. On the eve of battle, Adams gathered his team together. They huddled in the cramped confines of their barracks, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a single candle. Listen up, Adams said, his voice low and intense. Tomorrow, we're not just fighting for the Wagnir. We're fighting for the future of human-alien relations. We're showing the galaxy what humanity is made of. Let's make our species proud. The assault began in the dead of night. Adams and his team moved like shadows, infiltrating the enemy base with practiced ease. They planted explosives at key points, their movements swift and silent. All hell broke loose as the charges detonated, sending shockwaves rippling through the compound. Alarms blared and enemy soldiers poured out from every direction, but the humans were ready. They engaged in fierce, close-quarters combat, their weapons flashing in the darkness. Above them, the sky lit up as Wagnir ships unleashed a barrage of orbital bombardment. The ground shook beneath their feet as the base's defenses crumbled under the onslaught. Amid the chaos, Adams found himself face-to-face with a towering enemy commander. The alien warrior snarled, his eyes burning with hatred. Adams didn't hesitate. He launched himself at the commander, engaging in a brutal hand-to-hand battle. They traded blows, their movements a blur of speed and violence. But Adams refused to yield. He fought with the tenacity and perseverance that defined the human spirit. In the end, it was his unwavering commitment that proved decisive. With a final devastating strike, he brought the enemy commander crashing to the ground. As the smoke cleared and the dust settled, the true impact of their victory became apparent. The once formidable enemy base lay in ruins, its surviving forces retreating in disarray. For the first time in the war, the tide had turned in favor of the Wagnir. In the aftermath of the battle, Antares sought out Adams. The Wagnir commander clasped the human's shoulder, his eyes shining with newfound respect. Your team's bravery and skill were instrumental in our success, Antares said solemnly. The Wagnir leadership is beginning to see the true value of our human allies. Adams nodded, his gaze distant. This is just the beginning, he replied. We've won an important battle. The path to winning the war is still long. Adams stood before his team, their faces etched with purpose. This is it, folks. We hit their central command. We end this war. The Wagnir stealth ship hummed to life, its sleek form barely visible against the backdrop of space. Adams felt the familiar rush of adrenaline as they rocketed away from the Wagnir homeworld. Approaching the asteroid field, the Wagnir pilot announced. Hold on tight. The ship weaved through a maze of massive space rocks, alarms blaring as debris pelted the hull. Adams gripped his seat, fingers tightening. A tense silence fell over the crew as they evaded multiple enemy patrols, their hearts pounding with each near miss. Finally, they touched down on the uncharted planet. As soon as the bay doors opened, all hell broke loose. Enemy fire rained down, kicking up dirt and rocks around them. Move, move! Adams shouted, leading the charge. His team fanned out, using unconventional tactics that caught the enemy off guard. They leapfrogged from cover to cover, laying down, suppressing fire, and flanking the defenders. Adams dove behind a fallen pillar, bullets whizzing overhead. He popped up, took out 3 enemies in rapid succession with his disintegrator rifle. Push forward, he yelled. They fought their way deeper into the compound, leaving a wake of destruction. Explosions rocked the ground as they systematically took out defensive positions. Inside the central bunker, Adams and his team moved like ghosts. They slipped past patrols, disabling security systems and securing choke points. The maze-like corridors echoed with the sounds of distant alarms. Command center ahead, Adams whispered into his comm. Breach on my mark. They burst through the doors, catching the elite guards by surprise. A brutal, close-quarters fight ensued. Adams ducked under a swinging energy blade, countering with a vicious uppercut that sent his attacker sprawling. As the dust settled, Adams found himself face to face with the enemy supreme leader. The alien towered over him, radiating raw power. "You dare challenge me?" the leader snarled. Adams didn't waste breath on a reply. He launched himself at the alien, dodging a devastating blow that cratered the floor. They traded punches and kicks, each impact jarring Adams to his core. Blood trickled down Adams's face as he struggled to find an opening. The alien leader pressed his advantage, driving Adams back. In a daring plan, Adams feinted left, then drove his knee into the alien's midsection. As the leader doubled over, Adams delivered a crushing blow to its head. The alien leader crumpled to the ground, fatally wounded. Adams stood over his fallen foe, chest heaving. "Central Command neutralized," he reported, his voice hoarse. They seized control of the communication systems, broadcasting news of the enemy's defeat across the galaxy. As reports flooded in of mass uprisings, Adams allowed himself a small smile. Back on the Wagner homeworld, crowds cheered as Adams and his team disembarked. Antares approached, clasping Adams's arm in a warrior's greeting. "You've done the impossible," Antares said. "The Wagner owe you a debt we can never repay." Adams nodded, but his mind was already racing ahead. Rumors of a new threat nagged at him. He knew their fight was far from finished. "Get some rest," he told his team. "I have a feeling we'll be shipping out again soon." Adams stood before a holographic display of the enemy homeworld, his eyes narrowed in concentration. The captured enemy bunker had yielded a treasure trove of intel, including details of an upcoming sacred ritual that would leave the planet's defenses vulnerable. "This is our shot," Adams said, addressing the assembled team of human mercenaries and Wagner Special Forces. "We hit them hard and fast while their pants are down." Antares, the Wagner commander, nodded in agreement. "Our fleet will engage their orbital defenses, drawing attention away from your ground insertion." The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal, but that's exactly why it might work. Under cover of darkness, their captured enemy vessels slipped through the planet's atmosphere. Adams gripped the controls tightly, sweat beading on his forehead as they navigated through swirling storm clouds and jagged mountain peaks. Alarms blared as they narrowly avoided detection by automated defense systems. 30 seconds to touchdown," Adams called out. "Lock and load, people." The moment their boots hit the ground, all hell broke loose. Enemy troops swarmed from nearby barracks, energy weapons lighting up the night sky. Adams dove behind a twisted hunk of metal, returning fire with his disintegrator rifle. "Push forward," he shouted over the din of battle. "Don't let them pin us down." The human mercenaries moved like a well-oiled machine, using unorthodox tactics that caught the enemy off guard. They leapfrogged from cover to cover, tossing makeshift flashbangs and employing brutal hand-to-hand combat when things got up close and personal. As the firefight raged on the surface, Adams caught glimpses of Wagner ships engaging the orbital defenses. Explosions bloomed in the sky like deadly fireworks. With a perimeter secured, Adams led a small team towards the heavily fortified research facility. They crawled through maintenance tunnels, disabled security systems, and engaged in tense close-quarters battles with elite guards. Finally, they breached the main lab. Adams found himself face-to-face with the facility's lead scientist, a grotesque, many-limbed alien radiating malevolent intelligence. "You're too late," the scientist hissed. "My creations will bring your pitiful alliance to its knees." Adams's finger tightened on the trigger, but he hesitated. The alien clearly possessed vital information. Killing him outright could jeopardize the entire mission. "Talk," Adams growled, "or I'll give you a first-hand demonstration of human brutality." The standoff stretched for agonizing seconds before the scientist's tenacity crumbled. He spilled everything: weapons schematics, deployment plans, command codes. With the intel secured and charges set, Adams called in the orbital strike. The facility erupted in a cataclysmic fireball as they sprinted for the extraction point. Victory was within reach when a massive enemy force cut off their escape. At its head stood a towering commander, eyes locked on Adams with murderous intent. The human, the commander snarled. You will not leave this world alive. What followed was a brutal, no-holds-barred brawl. Adams matched the alien blow for blow, ignoring the burning in his muscles and the taste of blood in his mouth. With a final, desperate surge of strength, he drove his combat knife deep into a vulnerable joint in the commander's armor. As the alien fell, Adams staggered towards the waiting ships. His team had taken heavy losses, but they dealt a crippling blow to the enemy's war machine. Back on the Wagner homeworld, Antares clasped Adams' shoulder. You've done the impossible, he said. The tide of this war has truly turned. Adams nodded, his expression grim. The cost had been high, but there was no time to mourn. He knew the real fight was just beginning. Adams stood alone in the memorial chamber, his eyes fixed on the holographic images of his fallen comrades. The faces of brave men and women who had given everything for a cause larger than themselves stared back at him, their sacrifice a constant weight on his conscience. He reached out, his fingers passing through the ethereal projection of Sarah Chen, his second-in-command who had died covering their retreat on the enemy homeworld. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice hoarse. The door hissed open behind him. Adams turned to see Antares enter, the Wagner's normally stoic features tinged with concern. You carry a heavy burden, my friend, Antares said, moving to stand beside him. Adams nodded, his mind focused. They trusted me to lead them, to bring them home. Antares placed a hand on Adams's shoulder. Your team knew the risks. They fought not just for the Wagner, but for the future of humanity in this galaxy. And now, Adams asked, gesturing to the empty chamber, what future is left for us? Antares' expression darkened. There is something you must know. Come with me. They walked in silence through the twisting corridors of the Wagner Command Center. Antares led Adams to a secure briefing room, activating a series of encrypted holograms as the door sealed behind them. What you're about to see is classified at the highest levels, Antares said, his voice grave. The holograms coalesced into the image of a massive weapon, unlike anything Adams had ever seen. Its scale was difficult to comprehend, dwarfing even the largest Wagner capital ships. What am I looking at? Adams asked, leaning in to study the schematics. Our intelligence operatives uncovered this, Antares explained. It's a planet killer, capable of obliterating entire worlds with a single strike. Adams felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible. I wish it were, Antares said, but our sources are reliable. The enemy is constructing this weapon as we speak. If they succeed, everything we've fought for will have been for nothing, Adams finished. Antares nodded grimly. Precisely, which is why we need your help, Adams. One final mission. Adams turned away, his fists clenched. I don't know if I have anything left to give, Antares. My team, they're gone. Not all of them, Antares countered. We've assembled an elite strike force, your remaining human operatives, along with our finest Wagner warriors, but we need you to lead them. Adams closed his eyes, seeing the faces of his fallen comrades. Could he ask more of his people? Could he lead them into what might well be certain death? The stakes have never been higher, Antares pressed. If we fail, billions will die. Entire civilizations will be wiped out. Adams took a deep breath, steeling himself. He thought of Earth, of all the people who would never know how close they came to annihilation. He thought of Sarah, of all those who had given their lives to get them this far. When do we leave? Adams asked, his voice firm. Antares' mandibles clicked in what passed for a Wagner smile. Immediately. Your team is already prepping the ship. As they hurried through the bustling hangar bay, Adams saw his remaining human operatives loading gear onto a sleek Wagner stealth vessel. Their faces were grim, determined. They knew the odds they faced. Adams climbed aboard, taking his place in the command chair. He looked at the faces of his human comrades, mixed with the alien features of the Wagner special operators. They were an odd group, but they were all that stood between the galaxy and oblivion. You all know the mission, Adams said. his voice carrying through the ship. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be brutal. But if we succeed, we save billions of lives. He paused, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. I won't lie to you. There's a good chance we don't make it back from this one. But I promise you this. If we go down, we're taking that godforsaken weapon with us. A chorus of determined shouts filled the ship. Adams nodded to the pilot. Take us out! The hangar bay doors slid open, revealing the star-filled expanse of space. With a burst of its engines, the ship shot forward, carrying its crew toward their date with destiny.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.